Welcome to what really grinds my gears.
I'm teed off. I'm so teed off. I'm teed off. I'm so teed off. Welcome to And That's Why We Drink. This is why we are teed off this week and why we drink. And guess what, Em? We're recording at 3 p.m. Eastern, so I'm having a glass of wine.
Oh, thank God.
Look at this merch we've got. Look at this little shiny
She's
guy.
a beaut. That's what you look like most of the time.
Like what? Like I'm doing yoga and can actually sit cross-legged like that?
Just a bag of bones trying to relax.
Skeleton trying her best. Anyway, yeah, so I'm drinking some white wine today because it was in my little mini fridge up here for emergencies.
Weird. You don't have any red in your house?
Oh, don't be ridiculous.
You just don't like stairs, I see.
Who does, first of all? Second of all, it's an emergency wine. I had to use it today.
I don't think I've ever seen you with white wine except in your wine bra.
That was cold.
I know.
I will say that was a one-time mistake, and I don't recommend it.
Well, what is it, a Pinot Grigio?
I don't know. It's whatever the venue gave us that I stowed away in my backpack or my suitcase and brought home with me.
So there's nothing I love more than the smell of a Pinot Grigio.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
It is definitely a Pinot Grigio. I don't know anything about wine, as everybody already knows, even after 7 years of this. But I like to take. Sometimes the venues will give us like different things to try, and then I will just, if we don't actually, this time I put the cork in and put it in my suitcase, which was probably the dumbest thing I've ever done in my whole life.
You've done it before, and the whole thing shattered one time, and then red wine was all over everything in your bag. Do you remember that?
No. Oh, that was in my Louis Vuitton though. No, that was back when I had that giant turtle thing.
The turtle.
I would throw bottles of half-corked wine, like the trashiest person in the world, and they would just slosh everywhere. And my mom was like, well, that nice bag lasted you like a week. Anyway, yeah, that wine-stained bag is somewhere in this house. But no, now I have the proper accoutrement. I bought little bags that you can put the wine in, that if they leak, it'll absorb all the liquid. But anyway, so they gave us this nice wine, and I don't ever buy wine more than $4.99. So I thought I'd give it a whirl today. Yeah, but can I tell you why I drink real quick as I'm telling you what I'm drinking? Okay, so I just went onto my Gmail to check some of my 86,000 unread messages, and I saw our neighborhood forum had a post, and I was like, I wonder if anyone's updated on the skeleton. Talk about a bag of bones. This guy's being spread all over the neighborhood. It's becoming like a scavenger hunt. People have found different bones, different pieces of him.
Have you written in and said, just so everyone knows this was my skeleton? The origin begins here?
I started the thread saying, have you seen my legs? And then all of a sudden it's I found a tibia. I found this skull. And I'm like, oh my God. So now somebody took the torso. Somebody said, I found this bone in my yard. I'm like, okay, first of all, maybe call the police before you call me, but it's fine. I'm sure it's just plastic.
Just strewn about.
So I don't know what is going on. I don't know how to stop this train that I've started. It's just everybody's now chiming in what they found on the side of the road. And this poor skeleton is really going places.
If this were Toy Story, he'd be screaming.
He'd be horrible. Oh, don't traumatize the children. He's fine. He's already dead.
What is there any other reason why you drink today?
Oh, is that not enough? Let me think. Just that, I talked about my witchiness on our Yappy Hour, by the way, everybody, and I feel like I'm very excited because I'm going to pick up some mugwort today and finally finish my little mugwort pillow. Not to give you a little spoiler teaser, but on our Yappy Hour, we talked about my new foray into witchcraft and
specifically mugwort.
And specifically, mugwort was the entryway drug, the gateway drug, if you will. And so, I'm just kind of vibing today. I got my white wine. I feel funny. I feel weird.
Oh, why?
Just just dissociated, just up there floating around. And I really got to get better about that, but it's just hard. So, Emmethy, that is why I drink. Why do you drink this week, my friend?
Ugh. Well,
what?
I was drinking because
your tibia also spread all around the neighborhood,
and I ain't fibia in. Okay, that was stupid. So
cut that too, please, Jack.
Sorry, that wasn't very humorous.
Okay, we're back. We're back. We're back.
Sometimes it just takes a second.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, yesterday I burnt the absolute shit out of my hands because I just straight up grabbed a hot pan from the oven. I forgot.
We've all done
the
that.
glove. But it was every one of my fingers got attacked in some way. The worst one was this one.
Woof-a-doo. Yeah, that hurts. Oh, blister. Ew.
Yeah. That's the worst one. Everything else is like kind of small or not as like
that
ready to pop.
Sucks. I hate that feeling.
But this is also like right next to my fingernail. You know I hate fingernail things.
Yeah.
And it feels like my whole finger is so swollen that like my fingernail's gonna come off. I can't even think about it. So that happens. That happened. And then
what were you baking? Mac and cheese?
No, I was making steak. I just threw it in the
right.
I did like because we don't have like a grill or anything. That's not me saying I want a grill. Mom, don't get us a grill. My mom and Allison's dad are like so desperately trying to get us a grill, and I have no interest, and Allison has no interest.
That's so weird.
Every time I talk to either of them, they're like, it would look good in this yard, a nice grill.
I
and
guess
I'm like,
once you get a yard, people just assume,
I don't want a fucking grill. I literally can barely text people back. I'm not going to keep a grill.
You don't know how to use an oven.
Cleaned.
I wouldn't recommend that you use a grill.
No, I don't know how to use my hands near an oven.
Yeah, that's also true. Big danger.
But no, I'm used to just doing it on, like on the stovetop and then baking it afterwards to like let it collect its juices. Yum.
Sure.
But I don't want a grill. Anyway, my mom's going to use this as a reason why I need one. So that happened. What else? Something else happened. My internet's acting wonky. And then I'm trying desperately to update Chrome and it won't let me. And I've done every single thing I can do at this point. I've reset my computer. I've updated my computer. I've like uninstalled Google Chrome and like brought it back.
Now I'm just like itching to make you share your screen, but I'm not going to do it until after the show.
Well, when I see you in a couple days, I'll let you figure it out because I'm so at a loss. But now like certain websites aren't working because my Chrome isn't updated, and so I'm like,
you got to go in your system preferences.
I did everything. I've like been Googling how to
really
fix it, and it's not fixing. So I'm just stressed because weirdly a lot
What's
of
the website that won't work?
Like merchandise websites, because I'm trying to do like a Christmas list to send to my parents, and like weirdly like random, I guess, places that I don't know, but there's been a lot that say
go to Ace Hardware. They're selling grills for like 30% off this time of year. I feel like that's a good gift for everyone on your list.
Anyway, yeah, please help me later. I am inviting you to help me.
It sounds like I might not be able to, but me. I will try my darndest.
I know. I'm just getting frustrated about it. So that's why I drank, because my own computer seems to not be working. I was nervous actually that it wasn't going to let us record today.
Well, we did have some issues at the beginning. Maybe that's why.
Yeah. And I didn't know if that was the reason. I also, part of me is like, is it a virus? And like my computer's fine, but like, I don't know.
Okay,
I'm
now
just
you sound
tripping.
like your mother. Now you sound like all.
I'm tripping because I don't know what's going on. So now I'm in like fear mode.
I'm pretty sure it's not a virus preventing you from buying Christmas presents, but maybe.
That feels like the worst virus I could get.
That feels like the Grinch 3. Like that feels like the modern day Grinch they're trying to make that's going to suck.
Anyway, so I drink. I drink because I feel inconvenienced in a lot of ways this week.
Wow, remember when I said that my skeleton had been stolen and spread throughout the neighborhood, and you said, "Okay, what else?"
I know.
I'm sorry, mine doesn't live up to all your trauma that you're experiencing over there.
I also drink because there's a man in our yard who is our gardener, but he.
Okay, first of all, don't start it like that. Sheesh.
I did pay him to be here, but I also, every time I turn a corner, every time I look out my window, he's like really up close and personal because he's leaf blowing. So also if you hear leaf blowing, that's what's going on. Anyway, I don't know. I think I'm just overstimulated about nothing, if that makes sense. That's how I
about
feel.
a lot of things, not nothing, but yeah, it does make sense.
I feel like things that would usually not stress me out, I'm like weirdly irritated by today.
I find that sometimes my threshold is lower for like sensory stuff.
Can I tell you why it's called a threshold?
Yeah.
I don't know about like
Is it like threshing in like farming and then how much it holds?
Well, I don't know about like the phrase like reaching our threshold, but I like the threshold of a door. Do you know why it's called that?
Oh no.
You know how like at the like underneath a door frame is like the threshold.
Right. Is that like the baseboard or different?
Yeah.
It's like kind the thing that goes between the two baseboards in the doorway. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
so you take a bride, for example, over the threshold, right? Is that
yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Apparently, thresh is another word for straw, which, by the way, is. Do you know what straw is? Because it's not hay. Apparently, hay and straw are different things.
Is it grass?
Don't know that. Apparently, it's the bottom half of wheat.
Oh, the chaff.
I don't.
Now I'm just saying words. Like I know.
Okay,
anything.
like a Farmers for America or whatever.
Listen, farmers only. Yeah. Eva said Sunday school. That's where we learned this shit. That's true.
Oh, okay,
that is where I learned this shit.
No. So when you pull out wheat, the bottom half that you break off of it is straw.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Separate the wheat from the chaff.
Never in my life.
Really?
No.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So I guess the chaff is the straw.
Sure, which is also the thresh.
Stop it. Why do they need to use all these words?
How come we have 3 words for that, but not like the feeling when it rains, you know?
Oh, you know what?
I'm sure,
so
apparently
Michael Bublé has said a thing or two that will cover your bases. I wouldn't worry about it so much.
Well, so I guess they used to use thresh on floors to absorb water in areas like when it would if you had like kind of like dirt floors, I guess if you
like a straw floor.
If you trucked water in, it was really good at absorbing that. And so they had straw all over the floor, but you didn't want it to get knocked out of the house, and so you would put up a little piece of wood underneath the door to hold the thresh in. So it was
from the outside.
Yeah.
Oh,
so that's why they call it thresholds, because it holds it in.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Isn't that fun?
I think that's a fun fact. And now we both learned something about wheat. Something
Look
we
at that.
Definitely will need as we go forward in this life.
I think so. I have been told by my grandpa many times that I'm supposed to care about wheat pennies. I don't know what that is.
Oh, God, the wheat penny. Yeah, don't get me started.
All right. Anyway, that's why I drink. And I drink
that's all
an LD.
An LD. Excellent. Excellent, Tante. It seems like we both have very, very worthy problems this week.
I agree.
Usual. Yeah,
I agree, because we're always... It's always a worthy cause, us being stressed.
It's a worthy cause. It is, indeed. It is your turn, my friend, to tell me a story. So the last time I saw Eva, I was like, I see what you've done. And she was decked out in Quince. And she was like, I can't believe you can tell. I'm like, I can tell because I've got that same sweater. Anyway,
it's the cashmere one.
The cashmere one. Of course, it's in the fisherman sweater. It's becoming an epidemic.
I mean, it's especially nice now that it's like cozy and a fall season, and it's the right time to have all your snuggly sweaters.
Knits.
And Quince is here to deliver on the perfect fall cozy vibe. We have said before, all 3 of us have matching cashmere fisherman crew sweaters.
It's just normal. Don't worry about it.
It's like we're Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
Yeah.
And it's in addition to everything else in our house from Quince, from sheets to travel accessories to home goods. We love Quince.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50, and it's not just that. All Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. And also, it's not just that. But wait, there's more. Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices, so you can feel good about what you're getting. But of course, you're still getting premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/drink for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/drink to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/drink. Okay, this is oh my gosh, the title went away. What is it called? Oh, it has 2 names. This is in Gulfport, Mississippi. And this is the story of not only the Cahill Mansion, but it is also known as the Gregory House.
The balloons. Em did the number 2 on their computer and all these balloons. That'll never. It's always the worst timing. Whoever did this clearly didn't do any focus group testing, because it never works the way you want it to.
My laptop just updated and it still does that.
These
you
goddamn
couldn't
balloons.
fix that.
It's like you do the number 2 and a bunch of balloons fly. Like, well, for what? I don't understand. What use does this have?
I've never once found a use for it yet.
Oh my! I mean, it's just it's like a nice little ease the tension moment, but it really doesn't add much to the content. So Apple, get it together. Anyway, so sorry. Okay, so the Gregory House or the Cahill Mansion.
Yes, I think it's more famously known as the Cahill Mansion.
I've heard of that.
Oh, lovely.
But I feel like maybe that's just like a name that sounds...
It sounds haunted.
It sounds like another name. It sounds like a very...
Also in the Mississippi,
cliche.
It sounds like a southern rich house. The Cahill Mansion.
It just seems very... It seems almost like a jeweler, like K Diamonds. I don't know.
Yeah, every kiss begins with Cahill.
Yeah. Every kiss begins with Gregory doesn't quite have the same ring to it.
I will say, I think it's maybe just called the Cahill Mansion, but one source that I used called it the Gregory House. I don't know if they knew that it wasn't called the Cahill Mansion. I don't totally know. So I just put both. But this is also where I give a massive shout out to hauntedhouses.com, which love them. I use them often for
and
notes.
Also, they work on the old version of Google Chrome. So it's really good news for all of you who can't update.
You want to know how that I can guarantee that? Because the people who run it are like an old married couple.
I love this. They don't have like Java going on, all this bullshit.
No, but I think their names are Tom and Julie. I think Julie writes them and then Tom takes the pictures.
This is wonderful.
It's like,
that's my dream.
What a lovely way to bond, you know?
What a beautiful couples activity.
But they have a great website. I use them not all the time, but a lot. I'll use them if they have a source. I will say this time around, though, they deserve a big shout out because I don't know what happened. I don't know if they went to the house at the right time and they got to like interview someone, but they had information that like no other source had. So
this is like a deep throat moment. You know, it's like some source out there. I know. Is gonna whistleblow on these two for.
I don't know what Julie did to get the scoop from Madge, but but she did it. So I want to give them a shout out because if you
sorry, I just accused you of like doing illicit things, Tom and Julie. I promise I didn't mean it. It was a joke. And this podcast is really dumb, so don't take it personally.
I doubt they've ever heard of us, but
I'm sure they have not, and I hope nobody lets them know.
Anyway, just big shout out to them because I would say if not half my information, more than half my information came from them this time. So not from Julie and Tom. There was one source that called the Cahill Mansion a house that has more issues than Vogue.
Okay, I love that. My friend actually, they stole that joke because I feel like that a lot of people have that T-shirt, but I
still
clever.
Love it.
Yeah, it's a joke.
I feel like Julie would have gotten a real laugh out of it.
I mean, I feel like Julie was like, I already know that joke. I'm not going to like just steal a joke. I can make my own jokes. Like I'll say like, oh, my tibia. I'm not fibbying about it. And then it'll like really, it'll really work.
Okay. You know what? No one else laughed at that fibia joke, but I would have gotten a chuckle. And so would have Tom.
The humorous did fix it. It did fix it. You really did a quick turnaround there.
Sometimes it's the old switch and bait and switch because maybe I say the wrong thing, the unfunny part, so that the funny part is even funnier.
You do say sometimes. I will say this is the first time I recall this happening, but if
just pay attention now, you'll see.
Maybe I gotta like look closer.
Let's crack into things. Nice.
That was too soon after my skeleton got dismembered, but okay. Sure.
Did it sound like the bones cracking right off and getting strewn across the neighborhood?
If it did, I should have been able to hear that on my fucking doorbell camera, but apparently it's out of earshot.
You know that it's the same person throwing bones everywhere because if it were a different person, it became a game where everyone's throwing things everywhere, then one would have ended up in your yard by now.
That's probably true. Because
I feel like they're actively avoiding your yard, so they must know what house they stole it from.
You know, and every time I go to the garage, it seems like there are fewer bones. Like, at first, they left the torso, and I was like, okay, and it was just behind the haystack, and I was just too depressed to even pick him up. And then the next day, somebody posted, I found a torso of a skeleton. I remember someone else posting here, like, whose is this? And I was like, oh, and then my neighbor texted me, hey, somebody found the torso of your skeleton. And I said, oh, no, that's not mine. Like, what the fuck do I think I'm doing? I'm like, that's not my torso of a skeleton. Mine's still here. What am I thinking? I left it out. So then I go to the garage, torso's missing. Obviously, that was the torso of my skeleton. I'm like, who am I to be like, that's someone else's torso? Anyway.
Yeah, there's two people having the same problem in this neighborhood.
Like, who do I think I am accusing this of being someone else's problem? Anyway, sorry. So it's fine.
Well, I am apologizing publicly about.
I thought you were going to say I'm appalled, and I was like, I am also appalled. Thank you, and thank you for apologizing.
You're welcome.
For teenagers everywhere.
Honestly, I owe an apology to a lot of people from about 15 years ago.
It's karma. I think it's karma. I did bullshit like this.
When my car got egged, I'm like, my first thought, instead of being like the curmudgeon-y old neighbor, being like, you wily kids, yeah, I thought, you know what? This is karma.
I deserve this.
I should have known in another lifetime
it's
this
almost
would
like
come back to me.
It's almost like me in the past came to me and did it to me to punish me. You know
what's so funny? I think all the time about, like, I think about it in a way that like is unsettling. You should be worried that that future me will show up, or alternate reality me will show up. And what would I say to convince myself immediately that like I need to follow them and like go finish the mission?
I love this game.
I think about it, I'm not kidding, at least once a week. Like, and honest, at this point, I think if I just saw myself and I just said, I'm from the future, come with me, without question, I think I'd follow, because I've thought about it so much.
I'm super glad that we all know the perfect way to kidnap you now. Find a lookalike.
You have to look exactly like
I don't think we have to look exactly like you. It sounds like you're ready to believe whoever the hell walks up to you and says, hi, I'm future M.
I don't know. I think it would. I think the one credential is they have to look exactly like me. If they looked a little off, I would think uncanny valley, and I'd be like, I don't know about this. Yeah, but maybe the excuse would be like, we look different in this world, or something happened.
I got so much plastic surgery
after the accident. I look this way, like
now come stop the accident with me. Yeah, well, yikes! Of course you're going to join.
That's a good point. Yeah, I'll have to rethink this now. I'll have to rethink it. Where were we? This house. Okay. This is the Cahill Mansion.
Tom and Julie are like, we have not, this is not the shout out we wanted from anybody.
None of this came from our website.
God.
Okay. The location of this place was 10 Kimball Drive in the Bayou View neighborhood of Gulfport, Mississippi. And all locals, I guess from like the 50s to the 70s, if you grew up around there, you knew about this house. This was like it's like everyone in Fredericksburg knowing about like the slaughter pen or something.
Oh, I see. It's just like a local hotspot.
Yeah, where all the teens would explore, maybe. Right. Yeah. So we start in 1915. It was built by this guy, William, and that's the last time we hear about William. So
he made a name for himself. He really left a legacy, you know.
He said, I'm going to build this house. Never mind. I want out.
And then it's called the Gregory House. And it's like, well, what the fuck was that all for, William?
You should have stayed for more than 5 minutes, William. Just because you built it doesn't mean anything. So he built it in 1915. And then several families after the Stewarts moved in. I don't know if they were leasing it from William Stewart. Sorry, his last name's Stewart. Oh my God. Let's try again. Built by William Stewart. But several families came in after him. I don't know if they were leasing it from him or if everyone was moving in and out. Basically, it was a residential home for the first 20-ish years of its life. And then in 1941, during World War II, the Air Force took it over. And they took it they turned it into a NCO club, which is a non-commissioned officers. I literally didn't know that. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it is a little crazy. Also, did you just say offenders?
No, I just slurred my words.
I was like, that's fun.
Non-commissioned officers club. Okay, well, since you know everything and you got your degree.
I dated a guy in the Army. Sorry. Okay. I was going to say it's not my fault. It's fully my fault. And I take full responsibility for my crimes. But anyway, that's how I know.
Do you know what an NCO club is, or an officers club?
Is it where they just hang out?
I think so. Apparently they don't make them anymore because something about when there was a dip in alcohol prices, they started going out to like restaurants and didn't need
They were like, Red Lobster serves us this at a half price. Don't even worry about it. We can get all the shrimp we want too.
Yeah. So basically it was like a social, I'm assuming like a rec space.
Yeah, like a VW club or something. Well, not VW. That's Volkswagen. A VFW.
A VA? VFW?
Is VFW? Now I'm having a
Virginia Fort Worth? No, I don't.
Oh my God. No, VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars. A VFW like they have like those legions, you know, where you can like have a hall. You have like a party space, like a rentable hall, and
I think that's
like
what this was.
card games and shit.
It was, yeah, it seemed to be something along those lines. And when the mansion became an officers club, one sergeant there really got into some nefarious activities and brought it into the club, where I don't know if everyone was for sure involved, but everyone sounds complicit if they knew about it.
No, so they are the offenders, the non-commissioned offenders.
Well, so they turned the upstairs into a gambling hall, which was the bedrooms.
Okay.
Guess what else they turned the bedrooms into?
A brothel?
A brothel. But I don't even know if these were proper sex workers. It sounds like these women were being trafficked. And if the women got pregnant, then while in the building, they were forced to have abortions so nobody would find out that the men were raping them. That's the story that we've got here. So eventually his superiors, the guy who was running this thing, his superiors found out. We don't know if he got fired, but you know,
probably not.
Let the history of America tell you.
Yeah, let's just take a glance at the pattern. Sure, okay.
Because there's one source that said after the war that sergeant ended up like going back to the house and like taking valuables he had like stowed away there or something. So that implies he was not in fucking jail. So
right, he was at least on the loose to go get his valuables. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, that's the worst part of this story, I guess. That it was an officers club that ended up being shut down for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, get out of my space. Get out of my space. Sorry, that was a weird way to say that. But get out of my territory here. I'm the dark one. I tell you the fucked up shit.
Thank you. I don't like talking about it. So
some people
you
only
can
listen to this part. So, you know.
You know what? For the people who listen for the true crime portion, I'm glad I gave you a little
There you go. A little crumb. All right, everybody's heard about my little thinning patch on my head, okay? But look what I've got now. This state-of-the-art helmet. Okay, this is the iRestore. I freaking love this thing. Em is laughing, and I don't care because it is just that great.
No, you're beautiful. You look like my little wellness Hell's Angel, a Wells Angel. It's like Madonna stuns in new selfie, but it's Christine in her new little balding helmet.
Without pants on in the middle of the night.
So this episode is brought to you by iRestore, the clinically proven advanced hair growth system designed for people who want to say goodbye to thinning hair and hello to volume, which just take one look at Christine, you know that's her main goal.
You know that's the game for me right now.
It's the most non-invasive, pain-free, and drug-free way to bring your hair back to life.
So you can feel confident you're buying a system with proven results.
And maybe the best part about iRestore is they offer a 12-month money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free. And if your hair doesn't make a glorious return like the other 100% of people, then you'll get a full refund. No awkward questions, just fabulous hair or your money back.
For a limited time only, check out their huge Black Friday sale. Our listeners get hundreds of dollars off their iRestore Elite with our exclusive link at iRestorelaser.com/drink.
After the Air Force moved out of the building, the mansion then got owned by the Cahill family. So that's how it became the Cahill House.
Oh, I see.
But they were only there for a few years. I think it was definitely less than 10. I think it was closer to like 5 years that the Cahills lived here. It was a husband, wife, and 2 kids. But in 1953, when they were living there, their 14-year-old son had a tractor accident on the property and died. I think the tractor rolled over him.
Oh no.
And shortly after, I don't know if that's why, but the Cahills then moved away. Maybe it was like too hard to be there.
Yeah.
And that's when the building, again, became known as the Cahill Mansion. But in 1957, so only 4 years later, a new family moved in, the Gregorys, which is our main characters of the night. So it was, I think his name was Dr. Kendall Gregory.
Okay.
And his wife was named Ginny. And then they had apparently a shitload of kids. I think it was a blended family because it sounds like it was from multiple marriages. So the kids, as soon as they moved in, claimed that spooky things were happening to them. But of course, the parents brushed it off at first. even though they did have their suspicions, I guess Ginny was on top of it. And she was quoted saying, "My feeling on moving here was simply one of not being alone. I felt like I was always being watched."
Ugh,
yuck.
Bad
The
news.
second you walk into a house and you feel like you're being watched, why would you move in there?
Can't happen. I mean, I guess maybe you just didn't have a choice or whatever, but
yeah, in 1957,
it can't be a good start, you know?
It's I feel bad for all the women who had to move into a haunted house and they didn't have a say and they just had to roll their eyes through it. Just like, ugh, here we go.
Yeah, it can't feel nice. No.
Soon enough, Ginny was in agreement with these kids who were saying shit was going on because she began hearing screaming at night that was so frequent and so loud that she literally started wearing earplugs to bed.
That's like already you're like, hey girl.
I love how on day one she's fed up. Like
I love that she had to go find earplugs because I imagine the 50s you can't just like fucking go to Walgreens and buy like any assortment of earplugs. Like you probably have to go to a fucking pharmacy and be like, just don't ask why, but I need earplugs. Maybe you could say my husband snores, you know?
Yeah. Or there's screaming in the house. You know how that goes.
There's ghouls I need to hide from. It could go either way.
You know, that's does add to the theory, though, that she was just a housewife in the 50s who didn't have a say, because if she's now having to already correct her own sleep schedule.
Yeah.
Because of these ghosts. Like she's locked in whether or not she wants to be. Other times, the entire family would hear screaming except Ginny. Isn't that terrifying? Which is worse? Only you or everyone but you?
I think in the moment, everyone but me would be better because I'd be like, okay, whatever, you guys are. I can like tell myself like, well, I don't hear anything, so
should go borrow my earplugs.
Right, exactly. But I think the more I thought about it, I'd be really alarmed. Like in theory, that's not good. I think in the moment it would be like, oh yeah, you guys are silly. I don't hear anything. But then,
yeah,
I don't know.
I just saw a video on TikTok. Have you seen the videos of like mimics showing up in people's houses?
I just got goosebumps. It's so scary. I went down a rabbit hole a few months ago and watched like 40 of them. And I was like, why am I doing this?
I saw one come on last night where only one of them could hear the voice upstairs and the other one couldn't. And they like were recording it so that way she could play it back to him and be like, see, this is what I was hearing. Isn't that awful?
I just have chills. The first one I watched was my gateway video that I watched was the one where her mom like showed up at her door and was like banging on the door and was like, you have to let me in. But like
I've seen that one.
The doorbell didn't like show her or something. And then she's like, my mom never comes, like she would never talk like this. Her voice is different.
Which like that's a bad mimic at that point.
First of all, that's what everyone else was saying. Like, it's not even very good. I have chills. Creepy.
I do too. There's nothing that freaks me out more than a mimic.
It's like that doppelganger thing. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
And also like that you can, like you shouldn't, by the way, if you ever hear a mimic, you're supposed to like not speak to it and engage with it.
Not engage.
But how, and also like how would you know the first time they knock on the door, you'd go, yeah, like what's, you know.
I remember she was like hiding in her room and she's like, this lady is just banging on the door saying she's my mom and she looks like my mom, but I know she's not.
Which I don't understand the physics of a mimic because couldn't the mimic just walk into the other half of the room?
No, maybe
and talk into your face? Oh, you know what I mean? I always forget that like there might actually be like etiquette
like
and rules.
Etiquette, yeah. Etiquette when they're trying to like steal your soul. It feels like why would there be rules? But
it's like you already want to kill me. Like why are we following rules at this point?
Why are you being polite to me? That doesn't make sense.
I've never understood why a vampire can't be like has to be invited in. I'm like, you're a fucking vampire. Just like how like I'm sure there's a reason and I've just never heard it yet.
You're literally going to drain my blood. Why do I need to give you
consent
like, the time of day? Yeah, like why do I need to be polite to you right now?
It's wild that consent is so important to you as you're about to kill me without my consent.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so anyway, she was hearing screaming sometimes, and then other times everyone else was hearing the screaming. She described the sound as, quote, an indescribable bubbly moan. A horrible, hideous sound as if someone was in unbearable agony.
Oh, that's haunting.
And you must, at some point, you've heard it so much that she's just popping those earplugs and she's like, whatever. You know, she's
say like popping her Valium. I was like, yeah, me too, girl.
I would be.
Yeah.
But I mean, the first time must have been so just like distressing.
Yes.
And then by the time you're putting earbuds in, you're like, yeah, someone's screaming in pain, whatever.
You're like, not again, girl. Get over it. Yeah.
Another time, Ginny woke up to a man floating by her bed, and the description was long, but basically what they were saying is that he had his hand under his elbow like this, so his arm is resting in his hand, and then this hand was resting on his chin. So he was
like
just
a Mr. Rogers situation.
Yes, like just kind of holding his head, and he was just staring at her while floating by her bed. This is what she woke up to, a guy just doing this.
That would piss me off. I'm like, why are you looking so
why
casual?
are you so fucking comfy
right?
in this room?
Like, fucking get out of here. God, that pisses me. That
tee me right
off. That tees me right off is what it does. I'm freaking TO'd at this point. And I bet Ginny was too.
I'm sure she was. She was like, I literally already have earplugs in, and now you have to bother my eyes? Are you
now
kidding
I gotta
me?
get a fucking blindfold.
Another time, Jenny and her husband, I think his name was Kendall. I some of the sources were confusing Kendall as either the husband or one of the kids, but I'm sure Jenny would say they're all her kids. Ha ha ha. Yuck. So I'm just gonna call him Kendall, but I mean the husband.
Okay.
So Kendall and Jenny, they were another time woken up to something like literally as hard as it could, punching on their headboard.
Oh, not their head. Phew. I was like, that's gotta be shitty. Okay. On your headboard is also not good.
But also their headboard was like an 1800s antique, and now you're hitting it? Are you kidding me?
Okay, but it wasn't an antique then.
In the 1950s? It was still
never mind.
60 years old.
Yeah, it's very much an antique. I thought you were saying, because it was so old back then and I was like, no, they made stuff to last. So this was a literal antique thing.
A literal antique someone was just punching and they just woke up to like the punching sounds.
I wonder if the bed is haunted then. That's weird.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, remember that their bedroom, though, used to be where the gambling hall and the sex work was happening.
Oh, duh.
The trafficking was happening.
Sure.
So they woke up to something banging on their headboard, and then also the sound of like fingernails tapping themselves on the headboard. Almost like trying to like wake them up.
That's
like,
scary. Like get your attention, sort of.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Another time, let's just put it this way. They weren't the only people who saw apparitions in the house, because their children were seeing them nonstop. So the kids would wake up to, here's a list for you.
I was going to say, you put your hand on the computer like the kids would wake up to, and here we go.
Glowing figures getting up in their face and then walking out of the room.
These guys all have like serious attitude problems, like getting up in your face with your chin resting on your hand. Like, I'm so bored
You're
watching
so cocky,
you sleep.
yeah.
You know,
a woman floating on the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
An apparition that stood by their beds every night.
Sure.
A bright light emanating from the closet. Spirits that looked like heat waves walking through the room.
Weird.
Their dresser drawers opening by themselves. Books falling off the desk by themselves. Their names being called by children's voices. And the closet door opening and a little boy walking out towards their bed, through their body, bending down and staring at them while they're in bed.
Hang on. I'm trying to. So he walks out of the closet.
He walks out of the closet towards. So imagine like your closet door opens. A little kid. Although another source said it was a grown ass man, which is even more terrifying.
Way worse.
But an apparition, a male apparition, walks out of the closet after opening the door, walking towards you while you're lying in bed, then walks through you.
Oh,
then once he got to the other side of your bed, he leans over into your face and just stared at you.
Absolutely not. First of all, it's like, why did you have to go through me to look? Like, just stay there.
Like,
see me from there.
You could already see me.
Stop. You're just making a scene now, is what you're doing.
It's the bravado.
I'm getting angry. Yes, it is the bravado. It's like, what is your deal, dude?
Yeah, they're just all really up in my space.
But like, for some reason, this also feels like one of the most, to me at least, convincing haunting stories, because I feel like these all feel very believable. Like,
yeah,
like heat wave apparition, like that feels very specific and believable. Like drawers opening, like hearing your name, like it all feels very believable, like stuff people submit to us for listener stories. It's not like so over the top like some haunting stories are, you know?
I like that we're so jaded at this point that like a person walking through you, leaning over and staring into your face is like just, meat and potatoes.
Jeez, not again.
So the family also encountered, obviously, footsteps running through the entire house, especially especially in your bedroom while you're sleeping.
Classic.
They also had an upstairs porch, which, okay, money. But they would hear people walking around on the porch at night, which sounds like someone's going to break into your fucking house.
I was going to say, that's actually really scary because you're like, oh, someone climbed the patio. Yeah.
Yeah. You would also feel a lot of cold spots. Apparently the light fixtures in their house would just fall off the ceiling, which I have to beg is bad construction. And more bad construction, although it's definitely a ghost, is that their rooms would refuse to be painted.
What?
The paint would never last on the original wall color would always come through.
Why? That's so creepy.
I hate that one. It's like, oh, you can't change us, or you have to live in our history or something. Candles were found lit on their own, and one time one of the kids' jackets literally spontaneously combusted. It just burst into flames.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
The family has also seen a little girl, a man in dark clothing walking through the rooms, a man in a suit reading the paper, and a man in 1930s clothing come out of the bathroom, stare at them, quote, square in the face, and then walk up the stairs and fade away.
The gall of these fucking ghosts.
Like, why are you like? He's just staring me square in the face after coming out of the bathroom because he's busted. That he
to
like
make a
stank up the room.
Statement. Yeah, exactly. And he's pretending like he's not ashamed.
Yeah, he just stared. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Get out of my bathroom.
Yeah, what the fuck? Who do you think you are?
In empty rooms, the whole family and friends who would stay over would hear a loud cocktail party going on. Like singing, music, laughing, glasses clinking.
Whoa.
Sometimes you would already be in the room and all of a sudden everything else would go silent and then you would hear like you were in the party.
That's really cool. I feel like if I had to pick a haunting, that would be the least threatening to me. Like
because they invited you to be their friend.
No, because like if they're having a party in the other room, it's like, oh, they're busy. They don't care about me. You know what I mean? It's almost like they didn't invite me, so I'm so happy. They can have their little party and I can like have a ghostly experience without being involved.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, this one I think freaks me out even more because it's almost like they're laying their reality over mine.
If it comes into my room, I don't appreciate that. If it's in a different room, it's like, okay, good. Like, you guys have your party. I'll just listen in while I read my book. But if you're inside, like, I didn't ask to be invited. I don't want to be part of this. Yeah.
I would always get paranoid that, like, if I heard a party that I'd be like, is this like you guys are having fun? 1, 2, am I invited? And then 3, I would be like, is this actually more scary than I'm thinking it is? Like, is this like the eerie first few minutes before a tragedy or something? And that's why you're in this like blueprint haunting of this moment.
Oh, God, I hadn't even thought of that. So it's like, oh, maybe this is a marker of something terrible that happened. And it's replaying.
Yeah.
Oh, Em, that's so dark. Well, I was thinking,
welcome to my brain.
I was just thinking maybe there's some like, maybe it was like a memory of some really positive energy, like just like the most raucous night they ever had, and it got replayed. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get that.
But then again, if there are literally trafficked women there's nothing positive about that if it was coming from that time.
So
period,
maybe it's the ghost of a woman like trying to like tell you like what happened,
like replay
to her
that night. Yeah, good point. So it could be
because
dark.
In I don't remember the story anymore, but when I was a Segway ghost hunter tour guide in Yorktown, there's one story. It's in Yorktown.
I know
some
people just paused the show and texted their friend like, "Did you know Em used to be a Segway guy?" Because I don't think we've talked about that since like episode 5. Like I feel like people don't know that.
That was my college job. Yeah, I was a kite salesman, a boat builder,
giggling at all the people going, "Wait, what?"
A ghost hunter, a tour guide, a Segway tour guide.
Chipotle just for the corn recipe.
Chipotle, that was not in Yorktown, but that was 20 minutes down the road. But I did work at the one next to the Patrick Henry Mall, if you have been there. Anyway, there was one ghost there where like he was reading the paper and then got shot and he died. And now people see the ghost of him reading the paper. So it's almost like
a
the beginning
of that traumatic incident, right? Okay.
So when I hear a party going on, I always feel like it's the beginning of whatever happened next.
That's a great point. I hadn't thought of it that way. So thank you for adding a new, just a new dark angle to my life. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, so even imagine like being a guest in their house, and then all of a sudden waking up and you're in an empty room, but it sounds like there's a party going on around you. That's so jarring.
Horrible. That's horrible.
It's almost like they all stood around you with like musical instruments and they went 3, 2,
Yes.
1, and then like started pranking you.
You know, when I was little and I couldn't sleep at night because I could never sleep because I think there were a lot of weird things happening. But when I was like, I remember when my mom moved my little brother into my room and he was like a tiny baby. And I must have been like 2.5, 3 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember them moving him in there and I was like so scared because I was like, I want to protect him. I mean, I already at 3, I had so many mental issues. Anyway, I was like so paranoid about protecting him that I would try to stay awake as long as I could. And then when I just really needed to sleep and I couldn't, I would pretend that Raffi and all his like children singers would be standing around my bed singing songs to me so that like the bad ghosts couldn't come through.
That's actually very beautiful that you like they were your force field.
Yeah,
like, Raffi was your shield.
I don't think I ever thought about it like until this moment really, but like I used to pretend they were just standing around my bed like singing like the Christmas like must be Santa, must be, and I would be like, it's fine, it's all happy, because that was my favorite little CD. And so I would pretend like because I would see this guy, this dark thing walk into my room. It's probably just my imagination, but anyway,
I had a thing all the time that I'm still scared to sleep in my mom's room.
And I thought it was Batman. I called it Batman because it looked like this dark like shadow figure, and it would come in the room and I'd always be like, oh, I have to protect Alexander, so I would pretend like Raffi and all his little children's choir were like surrounding our beds. And that was my little protective shield. Anyway, so now with Leona, I just have like such a fondness for Raffi. I'm like, I just love him. So were they looking at you singing like to distract you, or were they looking away to like as a force field? It was like, to me, it was almost like I was just like watching a little concert, you know?
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I got to be like part of, I think I also liked the idea that like I got to be part of all the kids who were singing and like singing in my head, you know?
No, when I was little and I would get scared and like go sleep in my mom's room, I don't even, it's so weird because I would actually be too scared. I would have to pick a struggle because I was either too scared in my room that I would go sleep in my mom's room, or I would be like, I'm scared, but I might as well just stay here anyway because I'm more scared of my mom's room.
What happened in your mom's room?
Do you remember the Looney Tunes characters, Rocky and Muggsy? They were like gangsters. Like one was a little short one and one was like a big, tall, like kind of buffoon.
Oh my God, yes.
Okay, so the tiny one, he was the one who was like in charge.
Yeah.
He was, I swear to God, I always saw him standing in the doorway when I was sleeping in my mom's house.
Yuck.
But I would always be scared because the guy that's still in my bedroom, who I hear walking nonstop.
Yeah.
Every time I hear him, I would be like, do I just want to deal with this tonight, or do I want to go like see that little tiny gangster in my mom's room?
Wait, and you thought the one in your mom's room was worse, or just like a different?
Yeah, because I could see it.
Oh, that's bad.
Like the one in my room, I could never see it, but I could hear him and I could feel him get up in my face, and I hated it. But if I went to my mom's room, I wouldn't hear or feel anything near me, but I would see that thing just standing in the doorway.
Oh my God, I feel like I never think or talk about this stuff, and I hear people talk about their like childhoods, and I'm like, wow, you had so much crazy shit. But like, I remember when my mom moved out and I would stay in my dad's bed because I would get scared and I'd go to my dad's bed, and there was like after my mom moved out, it like changed, like the characters changed, which is like maybe just a weird psychological projection, but still very weird. Like I remember when my mom and dad were both there, it was like scary in its own way. Like I would see whatever, I'd imagine whatever. But then when my mom moved out and I'd go to my dad's bed, I was like, oh my God, there's way more like weird stuff happening.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. I need to go get another glass of wine. Hold on. I'm having a slight mental breakdown. Please hold.
Okay.
Okay. I feel better now.
Doesn't
this look? I told you, Pinot Grigio. I'm glad that you called it.
Oh, stunning! While you do that, I'm going to eat a little cheesy cheese. Which
oh my God, wine and cheese were so fucking classy. What happened?
And last night, you know what I was snacking on, which I don't really totally recommend, but I was eating it. Was not dried cranberries, dried cherries.
Dried cherries. I was going to say, Leona just got dried cherries and she feels very conflicted about them.
They're just a fancier raisin.
She was like, these are good, but I don't want any more. And we were like, interesting. It's her first foray into like, I think I like it. Like, it's like me with fig jam. I'm like, I guess I get it with like cheese and crackers, but I don't know. Maybe leave it on the tray.
I feel like, yeah, I got it because I was craving cherries.
That's what happened with Leona, and they didn't sell them because they're not in season. Yes,
yeah.
Holy shit, that's
me
so
and
funny.
Leona need to talk about.
You guys are actually starting to freak me out. I have a bag of dried cherries on the counter that we bought last week or a few days ago, and she was like, "I don't know about this." She's like, I just want regular cherries, and we're like, "Well, sorry." Even in America, we can't get our hands on those bad boys right now.
I was craving it like no other. Like I was becoming
Maybe
problem.
You guys were having like a joint delusion, you know?
Yeah, that'll happen.
She was
a lot.
also having the epic meltdown of I want cherries more than anything in the world. So I don't know what was going on.
I ended up getting kiwis instead.
Oh, love a kiwi.
It was fine. I love a kiwi, but I really wanted a cherry.
If you want a cherry, nothing will do. Nothing else.
Especially those like super dark ones. Ugh.
The best. Ugh. I have one of those pitters now for Leona where you just like pop them out, the seeds out.
Okay. I thought I needed one of those. I actually realized I kind of like chewing them out because I like to feel like an old like redneck, and I just like to spit into my little spittoon can.
Oh yeah. I mean, my brother and mother and I, you know, during our divorce days would just sit on the back porch and try to see who could spit the cherry pit the farthest, you know? It's a nostalgia thing too. Leona's like, fuck that. I just want like my perfectly pit removed cherries, please.
Well, if I were Leona's mother, I'd be terrified of a pit and choking.
Yes. Also, it started because she's a baby and she can't eat them. But I think maybe she's not into the nostalgia like we are.
One day, her and I are gonna go nuts on some cherries together.
I don't doubt it for 1 second.
Where were we?
Oh,
this sounds like a cocktail party.
Are we still recording? Okay.
Apparently they would hear cocktail party music, and then they would also hear heavy dragging and crashing.
Oh, maybe that's a thing you meant, that like something bad happened one night.
Maybe, but I think they would hear them at different times. They would hear like a cocktail party. They would hear heavy dragging and crashing, and at different times they would hear a woman screaming, "Get out!" Which I hate that because she's probably trying to fight someone off.
And to think like it's all in the bedrooms where the kids are all sleeping, like that's just terrifying.
The worst, arguably, in terms of like ghost hauntings, the kids woke up to circles drawn in blood on their windows.
What?
Fun fact, this was days before JFK was assassinated. And
you know what? That is a fun fact. Thank you.
Well, I say that because it also was like such a weird, jarring statement to see in the sources when they were like, and of course you can't forget JFK. And I was like, what?
You can't?
I was like, what in the QAnon is going on?
Let me forget about JFK for a minute. God damn it.
Well, so they had this experience and it was days before. Days later, which happened to be the day that JFK was assassinated, the kids again woke up to blood on their windows, but now it was literal handprints smeared into the windows and it was dripping off of their curtains.
That had to be a prank, right? Like one of the kids got ketchup.
Well, so Kendall took a sample to the doctor and it was in fact human blood, which they cannot explain because nobody was injured.
That's upsetting.
And the blood was weirdly Rh positive, which I guess so was JFK.
Well, I know Rh positive because when you're pregnant, that's like a big risk factor.
Oh, well, apparently it was just they really like to tie in the JFK thing in all of the fucking sources I read. So I'm also just reporting the news here. Everyone leave me alone. I don't totally see the connection, but maybe because JFK was such a big thing historically that day, it became part of their story.
Right. I guess it's like, wow, what a momentous occasion in history. And also this really freaky, weird thing happened.
There's blood dripping everywhere that happened to match JFK's blood the day he was shot.
I love that the doctor's like, sure, I'll test this blood and see if it's Rh positive. Like, okay. Yeah. I guess pregnant women in this country can't even get a normal healthcare appointment, but it's fine. Whatever the fuck.
But if a man brings the sample, then all of a sudden.
Then it's different. Also, fun fact about JFK, I guess, but yeah, I don't know how I feel about this. I feel
What? What?
I don't know. I just feel like somebody pranked that. This is the first line where I feel like, okay, this feels like a stretch. But I mean, they all kind of do, like eventually.
All I know is that every source, this was like their favorite part to talk about.
Yeah, I guess so.
But I also don't know where the blood would have come from. No one seemed injured. Certainly not enough to have blood like seeping out of curtains.
I mean,
that's a lot of blood.
The fact that they tested it is very alarming to me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that was also quoted from, that wasn't just like a reporter saying that. It was quoted from them saying it in a newspaper in like the 80s, which like, I don't know if that makes it more or less legitimate that it came from them. But yeah, that's a lot. That's not like, oh, I got a paper cut even I really got myself bad and I grabbed the window and now the smear's there. I mean, like,
right. And like
from
your
the
parents
curtains is crazy.
If it was like a kid, your parents wouldn't notice if you cut your hand open to bleed everywhere, you know? Yeah. That's very freaky.
I don't know. One night, one of their kids decided, this is obviously us, they were very aware of the ghosts, obviously. And the kid was like, I'm going to have a sleepover with my friends downstairs. Maybe they were trying to find the ghosts. I don't know. But they were just all downstairs together. That feels very perfect.
Like your friends come over like, you have a ghost, right? And it's like, oh, yeah, but can we do something else? I got Scrabble. Like, no, let's find the ghost. Oh.
In hindsight, I totally get why the kid who lived there wouldn't want to do that.
Totally.
But I would have totally been the kid who forced them to let me go ghost hunting.
Absolutely. We would have been like, we brought the Ouija board. Now what?
Yeah, we don't actually need you here. We just needed access to your house.
Yes, thank you for inviting us. You can go back to bed. We have things to do.
The kid sounded like he was down. So him and his friends were all down there. And again, they're sitting in the living room and they hear a loud cocktail party going on. By the way, that would have been enough for me to go, okay, thank you for letting me into your home. Now I'm ready to go. I just needed one piece of evidence. But they all stayed.
But again, I think it's the least scary thing for some reason. Like, if you're going to, like, I don't know, lure someone into a ghostly experience, I feel like hearing people having an enjoyable time and clinking glasses in the other room is, like, the least threatening one. Especially when you're like a kid, you know, you're just like, oh, it just sounds like a party. Like, sounds like mom and dad invited friends over. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were hearing a cocktail party go on. And later that night, they ended up seeing a shitload of apparitions. They saw a man in a white robe. They saw another man.
And it was their dad being like, go to bed. How many times do I have to tell you? You're keeping your mother up.
They also saw a man in a striped shirt. And then the rest of the apparitions they saw apparently were all outlines, but inside was smoke.
Weird.
And apparently
that reminds me of the heat wave ones, like the kind of squiggly.
Yeah. And also in my mind, if it's like a gambling hall and a brothel, then it's like that's a lot of cigarette smoke.
Much smoke. Yeah.
So these smoky entities, one of them sat in a chair near them and just stared at the fireplace, which I would love to know if a fire was actually cooking in that fireplace, because it'd be even eerier if it just stared at an empty fireplace.
I mean, I'm sorry. I imagine the kids were not alone with a big fireplace full of a fire. Maybe they were. I don't know. But yeah, imagine that darkened fireplace where there once was a fire and someone's like standing there with their, ooh, ew.
Another one leaned on the wall and just stared at the kids. And then another one walked right past them while they were sitting on the couch and sat on the coffee table that was next to them. And I don't know.
This is a busy fucking joint.
And also they're like so all up in your fucking business.
They have zero shame.
One of the kids was then followed around by an apparition for the rest of the night wearing formal attire, including a glowing white shirt.
Ugh, I don't like that, because the stuff that went on here, I don't like that they're following kids around. And,
by the way, this one was female. So they were following around.
Wait, the girl or the kid or the ghost?
No. The one that was being followed now was a girl.
Shit, I knew it, of course.
And she was, I'm assuming, young. I didn't mean like female, like she was a female, but you know, she was I don't know if she was a girl or a woman or a kid. I don't know what age she was.
Right.
But I'm assuming she was a young-looking girl, young enough to be trafficked.
Somebody was attaching to her, or she was getting noticed by something.
Yes.
Yuck.
One of the creepier ones to me is that this same kid who had the sleepover at different times, he also would see a ghost throughout the house throughout the years of a 14-year-old boy, just like the son who died on the property before they moved in. In fact, one time a family friend was visiting and saw a 14-year-old boy in the kitchen listening in on the phone conversation of Mrs. Gregory, of Ginny Gregory.
Little sneaky boy.
So like back in the day when there were landlines, this is for people who maybe don't know how landline phones work. But when the whole house shared one phone, or one line at least, there would be phones throughout the house that was all connected to the same line. So
and Em and I had a SpongeBob phone, obviously.
And so if someone was on a phone call, if you picked up another phone in another room, you could hear them. You could hear the conversation going on.
Right.
And so that was how a lot of us
and they could hear you if you
on
breathed,
each other.
If you breathed really loud, you have to be super, super fucking quiet.
Yeah, but that's how a lot of people would snoop on each other, where if you just listen in on people's phone calls, if you just grabbed a phone from another room.
Those
and
were the good old days, huh?
That's my mom used to grab a phone from another room and listen in on me talking to like my first boyfriend when I was in 5th grade.
LOL.
Like,
I would have also done that. In fact, if I figure out time travel, I will go back and just sit with your mom and listen to you talk to your first boyfriend, because I think that would be really an enjoyable experience.
It was basically me telling him to
keep his hands off.
Food. Yeah. Go over there, but I want your mom to bring me McDonald's.
Get tacos for me. The end.
Yeah. Anyway, so apparently this friend visiting saw a 14-year-old boy holding a phone up and like was obviously eavesdropping on somebody having a phone conversation. And so the friend scolded him and was like, I don't know who you are, but like you like get off the phone. You're not allowed to eavesdrop in this house. And apparently this 14-year-old, whoever he was, he seemed completely unfazed by being yelled at by this adult, put the phone down and just walked right out of the house. And
what the fuck?
And when Jenny hung up the phone and came back in to talk to her friend, the friend was like, Jenny, some 14-year-old boy was like listening in on your phone call.
Yeah.
And Jenny, I guess, had a picture, like a newspaper clipping or something from the 14-year-old boy who died. And the friend was like, that was him.
She's like, not this motherfucker again. This teenager keeps harassing our family.
But also, if you're a 14-year-old and you're like stuck on a property, of course you're going to start listening in on people's phones.
What else are you going to do?
I love that he probably doesn't need an actual landline phone like to haunt something. But
he could probably just stand there and listen, yeah.
Or maybe that says something about him being connected to the literal property, because if he didn't have the phone with him, he could only hear Ginny's side. Maybe he actually wanted to hear the outside world talking back to Ginny.
That's
anyway.
Dark.
Over the years, the Gregorys thought about demolishing the property. I think they thought they were going to like put a new property on there instead, or they were going to lease it out or something. But I don't know if the ghosts were involved in them wanting to demolish the property. But it never followed through, and eventually the house was damaged from a hurricane, which is why the family ultimately left, but it was still under their name. So even though they moved out, it was their property, but curious locals at this point had heard all the rumors, and so they started trespassing and vandalizing the property. And after it being vacant for a year, this one guy who they had some people come in who, like, if they asked permission, would do like ghost hunts in there or seances or whatever, because it was just an empty property at this point.
I guess so. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, one guy shows up and he's a parapsychologist and also a Baptist minister.
Whoa.
Named Dr. Bubar.
Okay.
And he asked the Gregorys if he could host a seance. When he did, apparently he spoke to a girl named Flossie.
Oh.
And Flossie, I guess, told them during the seance that she was trafficked and killed here.
Oh, gosh.
Bubar apparently can also, like, be possessed by the spirits, and he was speaking on behalf of Flossie. Channeling.
Her.
He was channeling her, yes. And apparently Flossie was saying, because he said, he shot me. I'm sick. I'm corroded. My body is full of holes.
Oy vey, that is unsettling.
Sick.
Yeah.
Bubar then said other spirits coming forward were taken from New Orleans. That's how the people that ran this place were able to find them, is that they were brought over from New Orleans.
Shit.
Apparently some of the spirits coming forward were also saying that they had died in the upstairs bathroom, probably from botched abortions.
Oh, for God's sake.
And one person who attended the seance said that while he was channeling these spirits, this second witness saw the tables moving by themselves in the house.
Oh boy.
So during the seance, Bubar mentions a few times that the spirits will never be free until a fire destroys the house, and then like predicted a house fire. He was like, eventually this place is going to be on fire and then the spirits will be free.
Mm-hmm.
Not long after, the house catches on fire.
No way.
And this is like a few months later, I think. And there's a house fire. The building is essentially destroyed, which is why it's no longer there. And interestingly, this fire happened after another group had just performed a seance in the house. So people think maybe it was that seance. Maybe this guy's prediction was right. But firefighters on the scene said that the fire looked suspicious, and they couldn't prove anything, but it was suspicious.
They found a Baptist minister's robe nearby.
Yes, he ran nude through the burning building. So, as you predicted, they told Bubar eventually found out about this, and he was like, "Oh, the place caught on fire? Interesting." And he seemed weirdly happy about it.
Uh-huh.
He said he was weirdly happy because the spirits were finally free, but it feels fishy. Mm-hmm. Fast forward a few years, and Bubar is convicted on 4 federal arson charges.
No. You're shitting me. You're shitting me.
After predicting another location, which he previously worked at, would be destroyed.
No. Oh my God. What a cover, though, for an arsonist.
Yeah, to be like,
to be predict- a seance. I mean, what the fuck? That's also crazy.
I wonder if he just finds haunted, dilapidated places that are going under anyway, so that way he can like get his fix.
But to be already a minister, like he's gone through a lot to get to a point where he can just go in, hold a seance, and be like, "It'll catch fire. Let me get my matches." Holy shit! That's
I wonder
crazy.
how much of it was a ruse and how much of it just like they held hands and
Wow.
But yeah, apparently he like also there was one article about how he threatened or he claimed that there would be a bombing at some point at like a plant, and then he ended up somehow being involved in that before the bombing happened.
Okay, so this is like a serial killer or something. He's just like getting his rocks off on this, I guess. Sounds like.
It's so because of this, it's never been confirmed about the Cahill Mansion, but it's speculated that he's involved in that fire. Right. And because of that, though, a lot of people now don't believe any of the stories of the Cahill Mansion because they think, well, obviously he faked his part, so maybe the Gregorys are faking their part. And so they...
Right, it kind of like lends incredibility to the whole thing. Like, it's... Yeah.
So... if all that stuff really did happen, though, and the Gregorys now, like, by proxy are now not believed is wild. But others believe that it's very haunted. And in 1989, a new house was built on the property, but there's no information on if it's haunted.
1989. So it burned. It did burn like all the way down
in like 1970. Yeah. And then it was, I think, a vacant lot for a while. And then in 1989, a new house was built. So 10 Kimball Drive or whatever does still exist, but it is a private residence and maybe not haunted. So do not go there.
I cannot believe this motherfucker did that.
I know.
I mean, I guess we don't technically know, but like, Jesus.
And it's also, that's wild that it's the most shocking part when it's like, we've always wanted an explanation for any part of my stories.
For
and now
sure.
that we've got one, we're like, I can't believe it. It's like,
for sure. It's like, well, but to be honest, I feel like every time people like kind of brush that shit under the rug. Like any real kind of evidence, concrete evidence is like, well, but it's probably still a ghost. This time it's like, oh no, this motherfucker was like an like a known arsonist.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, if we ever wanted to Marvel Cinematic Universe this and you wanted to cover him as a true crime,
I was going to say,
David Bubar.
I can't believe it. I'm going to
So.
Google that. Hold on. David Bubar.
And if you type in arson, I think his articles about him come up.
Here we go. You Are Psychic, the incredible story of David Bubar. Is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
A former Baptist minister who is now a full-time professional psychic.
And felon. And criminal.
Hey, yeah, this is weird. Did he actually go to jail?
I think so. I mean, he was convicted.
Wow. I'm very intrigued about this. I'm very intrigued. Okay, well, I'll look into it later because we don't have the time today.
Okay.
That's because I'm doing part 2 of my story.
Very excited.
Do you need an intermission before we start part 2?
Mm-mm.
Okay, great. This is part 2 of the kidnapping of Jaycee Lee Dugard.
Mhm.
The last thing I told you, which Em and I recorded yesterday, everybody else heard this, a week ago. But basically, Terry and her mom had both been looking up at the moon separately. Terry had no idea that her own daughter, Jaycee, was alive, looking at the moon just like she was 150 miles away after being kidnapped. And it would be 18 years before they saw each other again, and Jaycee would have to survive the unthinkable to make it back home to her family. That was the last thing I said. If you have not listened to part 1, please do, because this will not make sense to you otherwise. And let's get into part 2. Okay. Or do you have any questions, Em, before I get
good.
going? Okay, cool. So in the coming years, again, Terry obviously has no idea that her own daughter's still alive. She can hope, but she doesn't know. And most people presume she has died by now. In the passing years, Terry, who is the mom, continued to speak to the press and plead with Jaycee's abductor to bring her home. She would say to the cameras things like, "Please don't hurt her. She's a good girl. She'll do anything you ask her. Just don't hurt her." Authorities searched on horseback through all of the nearby woods with no idea how far away Jaycee really was. People considered like maybe some ransom scheme, like somebody was trying to get money out of this, but no demands ever came in. Some people were suggesting the child replacement theory, that like a family wanted a child and like, abducted her to
I didn't know that's what it was called.
Yeah, it's called the
child replacement theory?
Yes, child replacement theory. Thank you.
I didn't know there was a name to it.
Yeah, child replacement theory. And it's like that idea that we've seen on like SVU and stuff, where a parent who's desperate for a child will take somebody else's and kind of replace them as their own. Investigators also compared Jaycee's case to other abductions in the region, such as the 1988 kidnapping of 9-year-old Michaela Gerecht. Now, this is a very dark story as well. This is like a crime story within a crime story. Michaela and her best friend Katrina. This is also, by the way, 3 years before Jaycee was abducted. Okay. So we're in 1988, and nearby, 3 years before Jaycee was ever abducted, Michaela and her best friend Katrina rode their scooters to the corner store on a Saturday morning, daytime, in late 1988. And it's horrible because I've seen interviews with her mother, with Michaela's mother, and apparently it was the first time she allowed her daughter to leave the house alone.
Oh my God. The guilt. I can't imagine.
Like with a friend. And she said, fine, it's just a few buildings away. Like literally the end of the block. Like I'm not trying to scare everybody, but it is such an alarming thing. Like the end of the block, the corner store. And she said, fine, you can go with your friend, with your scooters.
I think this is another reason why I refuse to be a parent, where
it's so scary.
I just know that I was raised by a helicopter parent. Yeah. I know I'm capable of it. You just have to be so good at compartmentalizing like I am. Yeah. Ugh, terrifying.
So what happened to Michaela is that she and Katrina left their scooters by the door of the corner store while they went inside to buy candy. And when they came out, one of the scooters was missing. So Michaela looks around and she sees her own scooter next to a parked car on the ground. Okay. And she tells Katrina, let me go grab it. So Katrina goes to her scooter, and she was also interviewed. And she's like, I just walked over to my scooter, and as I was like about to, turn around, I heard Michaela screaming. And when I turned, this man had like apparently put the scooter next to his car so that she would approach the vehicle. He grabbed her, shoved her into his car. She was kicking and screaming, but of course too small to get away. The man tossed her in, got back, and sped off. First of all, so traumatic for everybody involved. Katrina ran back into the store to tell them what happened. They called 911, and Katrina described the man. Again, this is the middle of the day on a Saturday. Katrina described the man and his vehicle to police, who mobilized immediately to try and find her. Her mother was sure, like, this would be figured out quickly. It just happened. Like, I let her out of the door. Apparently, she turned and said, I love you, Mommy. And she said, I love you, Michaela. And that was the last conversation they ever had. And her mother was like, surely she'll be found. But 3 years passed, and she was still missing when Jaycee was kidnapped.
Oh my God.
So now when Jaycee's kidnapped, police are like, well, shit, these might be related, right? Like this is by the way, if you see photos of the two girls, they look so similar, like this kind of same age, blonde little girls, kind of same, just running around on their scooter, you know. And although Michaela disappeared in Hayward, which was 3 hours from South Lake Tahoe, there was a lot of similarities. So the like I said, they were both same age, both blonde, both kidnapped in the middle of broad daylight, in front of multiple witnesses, and there were no ransom notes, no leads, and so this seemed like a very similar case, basically. And like Jaycee, Michaela had completely vanished off the face of the earth. So they're thinking these must be related somehow. Investigators searched for any connection between the girls, like maybe they knew the same like family friend who was a known offender, or there was some other connection, but they found nothing. In fact, Jaycee was being taken from Hayward toward Antioch, California, which they had no idea at the time, which was 170 miles away from home. And after, like, now we're going to do like a little perspective shift. So we're going back to Jaycee now because I've already revealed the plot twist that she's actually alive. So from her perspective, what had happened is after she was pulled into the car at her bus stop, remember she had two abductors, a man and a woman.
Yeah.
The abductors shoved her to the floor and covered her with a blanket and heavy objects to keep her down.
Ugh.
And of course, still recovering from the initial assault, which, if you recall, included a fucking taser. Like they literally
they stun gunned her.
Stun gunned her. And still shaken, obviously, from that, she was already disoriented and in pain. And then underneath the blanket, she started to overheat, especially because they're like loading her with heavy objects and driving several hours. And she fought the urge to throw up because she was afraid. As this little girl, she was like, she already knew if she threw up, she would choke on it. Like she wouldn't be able to turn her head to, it's just so
God.
fucking horrific. And eventually she ended up losing consciousness. So when she woke, like
clock out. Yeah.
At that point, what more is going to happen? I know, it's horrible. When she woke up, one of her abductors uncovered her face and offered her a drink, and he told her he got an extra straw so she wouldn't have to use his straw. Wow.
The consideration is out of control.
Fucking kind of you. He laughed and told the other abductor, the woman, he couldn't believe he'd gotten away with it.
Oh my God, sick.
Imagine witnessing that.
Sick.
Soon they got back on the road and Jaycee drifted off again until they reached their final destination, which she heard the abductors call home. So she knew now, like, this was their home.
And now you're fucking home.
And now you're fucking home, exactly.
Oh my God.
When they arrived, the man who had attacked Jaycee with the stun gun told her he had very big, very aggressive dogs, and she had to stay very close to him and be quiet, or else they would attack her. He covered her head with a blanket, led her into a house where he took off all her clothes and made her shower with him.
You know that shower wasn't a shower.
This is horrible. Horrible.
There's no way that he just stood next to her.
No.
Oh my God.
No, he didn't. Then he moved Jaycee to a small soundproof shed in the yard with a pile of blankets on the floor for a bed and a single window that had been covered by a towel. The room was barely ventilated at all. It was unbearably hot. And he handcuffed Jaycee there and left her alone for hours every single day, only occasionally returning to bring her fast food and a bucket to use as a toilet.
Oh my God.
In the weeks following the abduction, Jaycee depended on her abductor completely down to just the most basic needs. She couldn't eat, drink, or even pee without him stepping in to help. So there's like this emotional dependency that she developed, especially as a child, on this person who's the only one who feeds her.
How old was she again?
She was 11.
11.
Yeah, so she's very little, and now like her only means of survival is this treacherous man who grabbed her. So she's in this shed, and of course it's not just lonely, it's also mind-numbingly boring. She only has her thoughts. She doesn't even know where she is or what's going on. And again, being 11, she tried to track time by the days and nights, but she could only see like through a towel-covered window, like when the sun went down. So she was like almost guessing at how many days were passing. And Jaycee's abductor ended up becoming her only connection to the world. And his visits were the only like interesting thing that ever happened.
Yeah, which like the I can't imagine
It's like a mind
the mental gymnastics of like weirdly getting excited to see someone just because I'm assuming, but I'd be like, oh, if it's the most interesting thing that's happening today,
it's at least a break in the monotony. Yes.
But then as soon as he's there, you're like, oh, fuck, get away from me.
No, so apparently, despite herself, she started looking forward to his visits because otherwise she's just sitting in there. And she learned over time that her abductor's name was Philip Garrido. And she learned he was holding her in his own recording studio.
Oh.
Great, I know. There was also a second room attached where he would keep instruments and sound equipment. And he would sometimes have his friends come over to play music. And they would move Jaycee to the house until the friends left and then move her back in.
Because I knew she'd probably bang on the wall and scream for help.
Well, she was in the studio.
Right. I thought, I see.
So they would take her out.
I thought they'd be in the second room, but no,
I think that was just where they stored the instruments, but they would like take her out of the studio, have all the friends come over, play music, put the instruments back, and then bring her back.
Imagine being one of his friends and knowing like I was in the room that a hostage was in when I wasn't there.
Yeah. And by the way, that is a big pattern in this case. So they're not the only ones. As time passed, Philip made what he considered noble improvements, I guess, to her living situation. He got an air conditioner for her so the room wasn't so hot. He removed her handcuffs, which, by the way, she said in an interview that he told her they were fuzzy handcuffs so they wouldn't hurt so much.
Oh my God.
And he left a bucket in the shed so that she could use the bathroom whenever she wanted instead of having to hold it until he got there, which, like, this is an 11-year-old child.
The generosity.
So darkly upsetting. Philip told Jaycee that he had taken her because he had a, quote, problem. And together, she could help him to make sure he didn't need to hurt anyone else.
So now it's up to her to be okay with all this.
Exactly. He's putting this fucking pressure and guilt on her to save other little girls. It's so sick and twisted. Of course, as we already probably all suspected, he repeatedly raped Jaycee all the time. And over time, Jaycee eventually met her second abductor, the woman, Nancy Garrido, who's Philip's wife. So to Jaycee, Nancy seemed hesitant to spend any time in the shed. But of course, Jaycee was like, can somebody come talk to me? And can somebody give me any clarity? And for so long, it had only been Philip. So Philip told Jaycee to do what she could to befriend his own wife, Nancy. He was like, can you just make her more comfortable in here, please?
Oh my God.
This is so sick.
It's your fault that she doesn't feel comfortable in here.
Yeah,
so
it is. You're 11. You should probably make sure that you're.
So you should make it more hospitable for her so she wants to hang out with you, because otherwise I'm getting yelled at that she doesn't like that I have you here.
I mean, really, it's like, it's beyond. Months passed and Nancy did spend more time with Jaycee as Jaycee's life simultaneously remained like very weirdly routine. Like, it was like so unstable, but also routine. Like, of course, you don't know. You're like, you kind of know your day to day, but you don't know what the fucking outcome is going to be.
Right.
Philip also promised Jaycee a cat and ended up getting her several pet cats. But then over and over again, he would take them away whenever they peed on the floor or he felt they were just like annoying him. He would just get rid of them, which I imagine is like an extra cruel thing to a girl
for
who
a
doesn't
child.
have any companions, you know?
Yeah, like not only is it like in general if you gave a little girl a cat and then ripped him away from her, but on top of it, it's like the only thing she has.
Exactly, in this very traumatic situation. And then he would be like, never mind, they're annoying me, and get rid of them. Jaycee would continually bond with every new cat he brought. She would teach them tricks. She loved them desperately. This is so sad. They were her friends. They were her only companions. She actually kept a journal about one of the cats, and she would chronicle their months together before Philip inevitably got rid of the cat. And she had months of just daily journal entries about how close she was with this cat. Jaycee's only consistent connections were Philip and Nancy, her two abductors. One time, Philip was gone for weeks, and Nancy had to care for Jaycee. And it was a really weird and uncomfortable time. But Philip finally returned and life went back to routine. And Jaycee just kind of lived like this, and years ended up passing. And when Jaycee turned 14, she got pregnant because, of course, that was bound to happen eventually. And she ended up giving birth to a baby girl and went through labor at home with only Philip and Nancy, who had watched birthing VHS tapes to prepare.
Oh my God.
And this girl is 14. She was abducted when she was 11. She doesn't even know about sex, presumably, let alone being raped. And she doesn't know.
Or that's how babies are made. Or
Right. Like there's no context for this. And so she's suddenly giving birth at home with no medication and only her abductors to deliver the babies. Luckily, the baby was healthy and they both were okay. And Jaycee basically became a full-time mother at age 14.
Well, there's nothing else to do. Jesus Christ.
Living in this shed.
And also, like, this is a sidebar, but, like, imagine, like, the awkward, like, it was up to her to make Nancy feel comfortable, and now all of a sudden she's pregnant with Nancy's husband's baby.
Oh
like,
my God, you're so right.
And
Yuck.
also now you're relying on this person who now is even more uncomfortable around you to help you give birth to your baby. Like, it's just like the dynamics are so fucking crazy.
It is. It's such a mind fuck in every way. So when she became a full-time mother, Nancy and Philip often slept in the other room where they kept the recording equipment to like assist with the baby. Because I guess they were like concerned enough to like care for the baby.
I think if there was I guess they
especially
have to
a 14-year-old. Like, what are you going to, she doesn't know. Nancy would take the baby outside because Jaycee wasn't allowed to go outside, right? So Nancy would take the baby outside and,
but who knows what she was doing to the baby? She could have been.
Well, she was literally just giving the baby air. And Jaycee was like, thank God, like, because now I have at least a little bit of just time to myself, not just watching this baby all by myself. They were basically caring for the baby more than they were caring for Jaycee. They were like, oh, this baby needs fresh air. This baby needs to be properly slept and fed.
Was she used for the couple to have a baby?
I don't think technically. Okay. I think this was just kind of a byproduct of it.
Because Nancy seems to be helping quite a lot.
I think they fell into the role a little bit. You know, like they were like, okay, this is the next natural step. The consequence of what we've done.
Feels almost like that movie, The Room.
Yes, I've been thinking about that the whole time.
Yeah.
Big yikes. So Jaycee was relieved occasionally when Nancy would take the baby and like give her some outside fresh air. But when Jaycee was 17 years old, this is 3 years later, she gave birth to another child.
Oh my God. Can you imagine raising 2 toddlers in a fucking studio?
2 babies in a shed. Oh, yeah. By the way, this place didn't have electricity for a while. And then they ended up putting wiring from the house to the shed for like kind of half-ass electricity. So it's basically like Room, that movie you're talking about, Brie Larson, right? Yeah. I think The Room is the one, with Tommy
Wiseau. Sorry.
Tommy Wiseau,
Room.
Yeah.
You're right.
Room. No, I get them mixed up. Very different vibes. Like probably the most extreme different vibes you could find. But again, she had the second baby and she and the baby made it through labor safely and delivery all over again. And Philip ended up building a tall fence around the backyard because he wanted Jaycee to be able to go outside without like being spotted. So he built this fence and it'd been years. I mean, 6 years. So finally she was able to go outside. She had not been outside.
I mean, I imagine your muscles are just atrophied. You can't even get outside.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Like walk around a circle, you know? And she'd been out enough to like be transferred to the house and back, but not like be able to spend time outside. So she was finally able to spend time outside of her living quarters. And she actually moved into a large tent. And she made this tent like her own as best she could. She homeschooled her daughters. She's 11. She was 11 when she was abducted. Like her schooling ended at 11. And now
she has a 6th grade reading level.
Now she's trying to teach these children how to be children. I mean, it's just out of control. She was given access to the computer. She researched homeschooling methods, designed lesson plans. She created worksheets for her daughters. Like she was so caring and compassionate and mothering toward her own daughters, even though she was 14 and forced into the role.
Also, like, I don't know if she's old enough to be thinking about this yet, but is she wondering, like, do these kids just get to up and leave one day? Or like, is she homeschooling them just to also live in a shed with me?
I mean, I don't know. She's 17. I think she's just like, I guess this is my life. And the kids get a better life than I do, like getting to be out and about with the parents. So,
because I'd be suspicious the second that they were even saying homeschool them, when it's like, well, does that imply that they're going to go somewhere and need these skills? Like what? Like, I'm surprised that the guy even encouraged that. It was just like, oh, you just have 2 children that we can't tell anyone about.
I think kind of like what you said, they sort of fell into the, like, they sort of, maybe they weren't planning it. Maybe they were planning it. But like Philip and his wife, Nancy, got really invested as parents of these little children. So it's almost like she fulfilled the role of surrogate as a child. And they kind of took over and acted as though these small children were their own flesh and blood, you know? So using the computer one day, Jaycee quickly proved that she had a skill for graphic design because she was kind of like helping make these lesson plans. And the thing is, Philip had a printing business where he would design and print business cards and other like freelance items for small businesses. And when he realized that Jaycee could use the computer and do this kind of graphic design, he let her start designing the stuff he would sell.
Crazy.
So often Jaycee thought of her mother. She could not even remember her own mother's face, but she knew, looking at her own daughters, that they resembled her mom. Isn't that so dark? It's like she would look at them and go, they remind me of my mom, even though I can't really put my finger on why or what it is about my kids that look like my mom.
Yeah, something in your memory gets triggered when they do something. Yeah.
She said, like, I didn't know if it's their nose, their laugh. Like, I couldn't figure out what it was, but something reminded me of my mother. And she knew, actually, that she could look for her mother online at any time.
I was going to say, like, is this guy unaware of the internet? Like, how is he... Well, that was such a risky thing to just trust her.
I think
maybe
she
it was the narcissist thing. Like, oh, I've gotten away with everything else so far.
Yeah, and it sort of worked. She was just so like under his thumb, and now had these 2 children to care for. And this, she was like, it's been almost half my life. Like, this is just how I live now. And you know, there's that like mind fuck of, oh, well, would anyone even care? Does anybody even want me anymore? You know, and so she just couldn't get herself to go there. And like, if she left, where would she go? Is her mom even around? Like, who would take care of the little girls? And there was just a lot of, I think, emotional turmoil there. And Philip and Nancy, of course, had done their best to raise her to believe the outside world was dangerous and terrifying, and nobody wanted her, and everybody was glad she was gone. You know, all just the mental mindfuckery that like you tell a child to make them convinced you're their only connection to the world. And she was like, oh my God, I have these 2 little girls now. I'm so scared to even leave with them and impose the world. At least here I know what they're going to get.
Right.
And I don't know. It's kind of like Room. Like, I don't know what's waiting for us outside of these 4 walls.
Also, she might have been like, I don't know what's going to happen, but at least we're killing time. Like,
yes, at least we're like surviving and eating, you know, and we love each other. I mean, her and the kids.
Yeah.
So eventually Jaycee was allowed to go on short trips with Nancy, like to go thrift shopping for clothes or buy some groceries. They didn't have a lot of money. But she went by the name. Now, I've heard Larissa or Alyssa. I've heard like both, so I don't know which one it really was. But they basically changed her name. And once Jaycee accidentally left her purse in another aisle while they shopped, and she went back and it had been stolen. And this kind of like confirmed to her, oh, well, the outside world is scary because I left my purse in one spot. It got stolen. And they were like, see, this is what happens when you leave the house. Like, people are
so they were able to trap her like to a point where she almost wanted to be trapped.
Yes, exactly.
That's what she thought. Yeah.
And she thought like nobody else was going to give her the time of day. Like, if they're out just stealing her purse, who's going to care that she was kidnapped? She also feared like, what would happen to my daughters if I left them? Like, would they be harmed in replacement of me? You know, there was so much turmoil there. And in the years since Jaycee's abduction, Philip, oy vey, had become fiercely religious.
Of course. He was only one step away from being a full cult leader, so.
Well, get ready. You're onto something. Because he read the Bible often, and he would lecture them on its contents and what he believed were the messages. He said he had prayed to God to never hurt his daughters, and that he had been cured of his problem.
Oh, well, then release me.
Yeah, okay. Precisely. When he and Jaycee ever chafed or he failed to keep a commitment to Jaycee, he often blamed his behavior on outside forces like the angels. He said, oh, it's not my fault. It's like the angel's fault, which like now you know he's losing it.
Fully.
Yeah, she was often resentful of Philip because she would school the girls all day, basically start running the printing business he operated. And if she ever tried to address him about the issues, he would just blame the angels. He'd be like, sorry, they're just not letting me.
I can't wait to start using that on you now. I'm just,
I'm sorry, it's the angels.
You know how it is.
Oh, I sure do. Hey, get this, he attempted to start his own church. So you definitely called it.
All you need is a controlling person who already has taken slaves to get involved in religion and decide realize that he's the prophecy.
A narcissist, yes, exactly. And so he told people he knew that he could speak to angels who are apparently always preventing him from taking a lunch break. You know, those angels.
Those pesky fucking angels.
Pesky angels. And he said he was about to change the world.
Yuck.
Now, I can't wait to tell you how he got caught.
I can't wait either. I know it's going to be something really stupid.
Oh,
I
it's
know,
so fucking dumb, Em.
I think it's an absolute cause and effect of his narcissism. What?
Amen. Hallelujah. What? You're right.
What, he had a billboard that said, I can do anything, even take someone hostage, and you wouldn't even notice?
You might as well, right? Because in 2009, Philip walked into the UC Berkeley Police Department bringing with him Jaycee's daughters, and spoke to a police officer who was head of security at UC Berkeley and also in charge of, I don't know if she was special head of security, but she was in charge of special events on campus. So she was in charge of security of like any events they were holding. And Philip said, I would like to host an event here at UC Berkeley promoting my church.
Okay.
And Lisa Campbell, who was interviewed, was like, listen, I'm like,
wait,
really
Kimball?
busy. Campbell.
I was like, oh, synchronicity.
Close though.
So she said, no, I'm busy. I love that.
She was like, I'm like really busy, but okay, what's your like pitch? And she started to become concerned as he talked about the two girls he was with. Cause she's like, this is just something is off, right?
Mm-hmm.
She asked him to come back the next day, which I think is so smart. She was like, hey, why don't you come back and you can give me more detail? So in the meantime, Lisa told police officer Allie Jacobs,
good job.
Hey, yes, this guy and these girls came in, something seemed off, and they're coming back tomorrow. And so Lisa's like, I'm in, I'll be there. So Philip returns and he brings with him a book that he said he wrote and needed to be shared with the world.
I guarantee it was like on like a notepad or something,
so
or like
embarrassing.
He
like figured out
Microsoft
MS
document.
Paint. Yeah, like so embarrassing. And so, of course, Lisa and Allie are like, all right, we have this guy's name now. Let's look into him. Philip Garrido. They look into him. He has this fucking rap sheet of the century. He's on parole for kidnapping and rape. They contact his parole officer to be like, hey, this motherfucker came by and says he has this manifesto or whatever.
Did he forget like how the police system works? Like,
I think it's just like you said, like some people are so narcissistic, they think they're just one step ahead of everyone else.
Did he just think like there's no way they would look me up in the system?
I guess he just thought like he's such a savior of the world that like it doesn't matter. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. Because eventually wasn't he gonna have to like, if he really wanted to open a church, wouldn't he have to like file and like wouldn't people like look into him? I mean
I think he would probably just assume if he's this far gone, he'd probably just assume like, oh, this is part of my church now.
Well, the angels would protect him.
Right, so. Exactly. Like the angels told me to do it. I don't know. There's probably so many reasons he could come up with. But either way, they like contacted his parole officer and were telling him the whole story. And the parole officer was like, wait. Who was he with? And they said, oh, well, Philip came with two girls he introduced as his daughters. And the parole officer was like, Philip does not have any children. Like, we visit him every month, and I know he doesn't have children. So this is fishy.
So either he's kidnapped them or he's got a big secret.
He's either lying or something's going on. So he called Philip in for a meeting, and Philip showed up this time with Jaycee to meet his parole officer.
This is beautiful. I mean, like, obviously this is a real person story. So in that way, I'm like, holy shit, I feel so bad for her. But like, also, while I'm just paying attention to him being a narcissistic piece of shit,
dumbass.
This is art.
Exactly. He's walking right into it. Thank God.
Yeah.
So this time when he was asked about the children, he said they were his nieces and that he didn't know how to get in touch with his brother, who was actually their father. And in another room, of course, they separated Jaycee and they asked her, like, what's your involvement with Philip and the girls? And she kind of like kept changing the story. Like, I don't think she knew what she was supposed to say. And of course, they were like, hold on to that thought. We're going to go back to Philip real quick. So they go back to Philip and they're like, we have a few more questions. And they kept him for a few hours. And then finally, he just full on confessed and said that that's actually Jaycee. I kidnapped her 18 years ago.
It's wild how quick they crumble.
Pressure. It barely took any pressure. Just crumbled.
Yeah, I don't know which one I want, for him to crumble or him to try. But
the craziest part is like it's been 18 years. So it's like, I wonder if it's just been so long that he kind of doesn't have the energy for it anymore.
Or maybe like she'd served her purpose.
Right.
To him.
And he's over it. Like, I don't know what the deal is, but he basically crumbled right away. And
maybe he's like, I don't want to deal with these kids. My wife has hated me for 18 years because I brought a girl home. And maybe it's better to just go to jail so I don't have to deal with anybody.
I might as well just
because everyone else is a problem.
Give it all up now. And I mean, the fact that it was 18 fucking years. So he finally admits it. And the officers tell Jaycee so they go back to Jaycee, right? And they're like, okay, Philip just told us that your name is not Allison. It's Jaycee. And you were kidnapped 18 years ago. And they said, hey, you need to tell us your name. You need to confirm your identity. And she had not spoken her own name out loud in so many years that she had to write it down.
Wow.
And think about this. She hadn't probably written her name since she was 11.
Wow.
Or like at least not owned her own name, since she was 11, outside of maybe a diary. So Philip and Nancy were arrested. Jaycee and her daughters were taken into protective custody. And suddenly, on what was like just an average day in her fucking turmoil of a life of just being trapped, suddenly she was free. Which also, like, what you were saying, why after all this time, it's like, why did he bring her to the police station? Like, he must have had some inclination to give himself up, right? Like, why else would he bring Jaycee?
Or no, I would think that he's just like such a narcissist that he got away with the kids yesterday. So now let's even push the stakes even further this time and take her. I don't know.
But like,
I feel
do you know for what? Like for like just the kicks, or like
I would think it was just the kicks.
Because like a parole officer, it feels like the last person that you want to. I mean, I guess maybe he just was like.
I think after 18 years of having that kind of like disgusting confidence, like you really pushing. You're pushing it every time. Like, I think you just like the risk at that point.
You're right. And it probably is so warped at this point. Like 18 years of just getting away with like this. And by the way, I forget if this is in the notes or not, but important point. Many parole officers came by because this was part of checking in on their parolee. And they came by often. And there were reports of children in the yard. There were reports from neighbors saying, we're worried. There's this girl there. There's a little kid. And parole officers asked, who are those kids? And he said, oh, they're just like my nieces. And they just let it be. So there were so many times over the 18 years where it could have been caught. You know what I mean?
I can't imagine the amount of people who could look back now and go, I could have done something without even knowing that
the pain of that must be so unreal. Like 18 years is unfathomable. Out of control. Yeah.
It's literally a whole person.
Fathom. No. And she was 11 when she was kidnapped. So, I mean, unreal.
So she was how old when this happened then? 18 plus 11, so 29?
Yeah, so she was just about 30, I believe.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Imagine starting your life now.
With 2 children.
With 2 kids.
Well, imagine being a child and then skipping all the way, you know what I mean, to being like your mother's age, basically. Like it's
with also 18 years of like insane trauma.
I wish it was skipping, right? But it's not skipping. It's just that dark period of trauma. So the police contacted Terry and told her, this is her mom, told her, hey, your daughter's alive, which shock.
Imagine that. Yeah.
And guess what? You also have 2 granddaughters. Like the shock of that. Because
I wouldn't believe them at first. I'd be like, you have the wrong person.
The way that they described having to come to terms with the idea that she was probably dead, like how on earth could she still be alive after 18 years? You know, statistically and otherwise. And the fact that she called and said, not only is your daughter here with us right now and you can see her, she also has 2 children. your 11-year-old, it's just so trippy. And so, of course, Jaycee was afraid. Like, she hadn't seen her family since she was 11. What if they couldn't accept her daughters? What would they think of her after all these years? And the night before the reunion, she had to somehow figure out, and this is so sad because it's still on her, even when she's technically safe, she has to figure out what to tell her daughters, like how to explain how they ended up here and how she's going to have to introduce them to their grandma, why there's going to be so many tears and news cameras. I mean, it's just such a burden. And so she decided she was going to tell them the truth. She told them she had been taken as a child. But weirdly, both girls seemed to like completely understand and be empathetic. And they were so excited for Jaycee to be able to see her own mommy. Like they were like, you get to see your mommy tomorrow. Like,
how old were they?
I would say, I think, if I'm guessing, like 13 and 11.
Yeah, something like that. Because if she was pregnant by 14 and she's almost 30, so they would be like 15 or 16 then.
Yeah, so they were like teenagers. Yeah.
Wow.
And so they were just very empathetic and were just excited for Jaycee to be able to see her mother. And when Jaycee was so terrified, but when she saw her mother and was reunited with her, she described it as feeling whole again. Terry, of course, had never given up hope that Jaycee would come home, which I don't think any mother really does, or any parent of a missing child really does. But, usually you don't get that happy ending. Jaycee's younger sister, Shayna, had grown up. Remember that baby that the stepdad had been like more kind to than her? So Shayna, of course, lived her whole life under this shadow of like
this ghost,
older sister, the ghost of my sister who went missing. And so now she gets to reunite with baby Shayna, who's now like probably 20, It's just crazy.
I mean, imagine on top of everything else, so like I don't know how she must have felt, the mom, Terry, to see granddaughters that are older than the last time you ever saw your daughter.
Oh my God. Yeah, the
like you never even got to
are teenagers.
You never got to see your kid as 15, but you're seeing your grandkids at 15.
Oh,
that has to be so weird because you're like, I wonder if this is what my own kid looked like at 15.
I know. Remember, and then she kept saying like, "Oh, I recognize my mom and my own kids, but I don't."
Yeah,
know what
so Terry recognized her or her daughter and her grandkids, and she's like, I have to assume this is what she looked like, and I just missed it.
Mindfuck to see a kid 18 years later who looks almost like the kid that you lost 18 years ago. Oh my gosh. It's just so much. It's so much. And oh gosh, Terry said that just days before Jaycee came home, she had gone outside, looked up at the moon, and asked the moon if it knew where Jaycee was.
Oh, wow. She was still looking at the moon after all those years.
And Jaycee told her, I also went outside looking at the moon and was also watching it and thinking of you.
Oh my God.
They did this a lot, I think. Once she got to be outside, she got to go do what they always did, which was sit on the porch and look at the moon. And now they're doing it separately.
Wow.
In 2011, Philip Garrido, age 60, was sentenced to 431 years in prison. Excellentante. Nancy, who's 55, received 36 years to life. I know, right? No better. Not 1 year less than 431 years. Jaycee was also awarded a $20 million settlement because of all the parole officers and law enforcement that had missed the fact that she was being held hostage and being used to birth children in the shed. So she was awarded that $20 million settlement. So in 1976, quick backtrack. So this was, now we're in 2011 that he's been sentenced, right? But in 1976, he had actually kidnapped 25-year-old Katie Calloway Hall, and he had taken her to a storage unit in Nevada where he raped her and held her for hours. And when police showed up at the storage unit by chance and knocked on the door, so apparently Philip had said to her, this was well before he had abducted Jaycee, but he told Katie, do I have to tie you up or are you going to be quiet? When the police showed up at the storage unit. And she said, I swear I'll be quiet. I swear I'll be quiet. The police show up. And of course now, and she's been interviewed in these documentaries as well. And now when the police show up, she goes, well, this is my only chance.
Yeah, of course.
There's no way. There's no other way. So she just fucking runs and starts screaming. And thank God, because they are able to rescue her, get her out of the situation, which sounds like obviously was not going to end well.
Mm-mm.
And Philip had been sentenced to 50 years in federal prison. And Katie later said in an interview that she had come to believe he was put in her path because she was strong enough to survive and make sure nobody else would ever go through this. But he was paroled 11 years later, and then immediately the Jaycee Dugard thing happened.
Do we ever find out like how he knew Nancy? Like how quick did they end up together after he was paroled?
Oh, that's a really good question, actually.
Because it sounds like she could have also been like a victim or something, or I don't know. I don't know what her dynamic is.
I don't actually really know the details. She does not get a lot of description. Yeah, I don't really know.
Interesting.
That's actually
because it sounds like if he was paroled and then met her, she must have known something of his background, or like at least he was in federal prison. You know, like what's her gimmick, and why isn't she telling on him, and why? So I feel like she was also being threatened behind the scenes, and we don't know that, or maybe she's also twisted. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, who knows? It's like one of those things where you hear stories of like couples who just unfortunately find each other and end up being like fuel to each other's flames, I guess. But yeah, there's no real clarity. I mean, it says that she worked as a nurse's aide and a physical therapy aide, and she was charged with kidnapping, rape, and false imprisonment, and was convicted. So it doesn't really say much.
Yeah, I'd love to know her behind the scenes of like why she never fucking called the police on him or something.
I'm very curious about that, and I don't have the answers. I wish I had taken the time to know that, but
no, you're good.
I'll look into it. But so in the 18 years that Philip had, by the way, like imagine this. So he has already been in prison for 11 years for, okay, remember when he went into UC Berkeley and said, I want to showcase my new manifesto / religion. And they were like, let's just do a quick check and find out that this guy had been in prison for abduction and rape. That was for the story I just told you about Katie. So he was paroled after 11 years. And then in the following 18 years, which is when he held Jaycee and her daughters captive, like I was telling you, parole officers and police repeatedly failed at noticing this. And it was not that discreet. Like neighbors would call occasionally and say, hey, I'm worried. There are little kids next door in the backyard and they never seem to like go to school or never seem to have parental supervision. I don't know who these kids are. And police would show up and be like, who are they? And he'd go, my nieces. And they'd go, okay, bye. You know, and there was just never any. And to think like this guy was in prison for kidnapping and rape of a young girl. It's like, wouldn't you think at least
no wonder she got $20 million.
Yes. It's like with the context. It's one thing if you just like don't have any context surrounding why there's kids there. If you have the context that this guy has been in prison for raping a child, or no, sorry, she wasn't a child at the time, 25-year-old, but raping and abducting a girl, a young woman, like, wouldn't you think I will at least do a little more thorough? All you got to do is open the shed and you'll see her bed and all that nonsense.
How was there a parole officer who never looked on his entire property?
They said they rarely inspected the home, which was part of their job. They were supposed to inspect the home. They were supposed to.
Like why would if someone got only 11 out of 50 years, you would think, okay,
and you're getting complaints from the neighbors about girls in the backyard.
Yeah, I would think if someone's done 11 years, you can go check, especially because they're like
you can do a little perusing,
a quick scan. Jesus Christ!
I mean, it's just out of control, and like at this time, like I don't know if I gave it enough airtime, but like basically she was running the business. So there was one client who was interviewed and said like there was a mistake on my business card, so I called, and like later I found out it was Jaycee I was talking to. But like Jaycee said, oh, we'll fix that right up, Mrs. So-and-so, and like fixed up the business card. So she's like an employee and manager at this company also, and interfacing with clients. Like she's fully been swept. I mean,
also,
this.
I love that it's like because he's such a narcissist, he opens a business and then makes like his literal victim
100%.
do it, but then he gets to reap all the reward, of course.
100%. So. It's just,
but he's busy writing a religion with the angels.
He's so busy talking to angels who won't leave him alone. Yeah, it's really, really fucked up. Sometimes the parole officers would like make appointments and then never even show. Like there's just a lot of neglecting their duties there, which, like you said, is probably why the $20 million dollars were awarded. Like I said, the Garridos lived in a residential neighborhood. There were complaints being called in. For example, in 2006, a neighbor called to report that 2 young girls appeared to be living in a tent in the backyard. And although, of course, this should have
oversight
raised
is crazy.
fucking giant alarm bells because he's on parole for kidnapping, the responding officer only gave him like a citation and said like, hey, don't let your nieces sleep in the yard. When Philip left for a while when Jaycee was younger and she had been alone with Nancy, it turned out he had actually been in jail during that time. And God. Even when he was in jail, they didn't come over and do an inspection at the house.
Wow. He
just said to his wife or partner, whoever she was, hey, watch my kidnapping victim for a few days. I'm going to jail. So it was, I know. It was determined that authorities repeatedly failed to follow basic procedures, which would have led to a much earlier discovery and rescue of Jaycee than 18 fucking years. And after her discovery, of course, they did an extensive search of the property. And, they looked for evidence that might link him to any other kidnappings like Michaela's, for example, but they couldn't find anything, which is extra hard because Michaela's mom, who thought like her daughter's case would be solved in hours, is now 21 years later, and Jaycee's kidnapper is caught, but they find no evidence of Michaela on the property. So she doesn't even get answers. The Garridos' defense tried to argue, imagine being the defense lawyer, tried to argue that Jaycee could have sought help because she had access to the internet. Yikes. And that she and the Garridos and her daughters were just a big happy family. Yikes. But
like, I do wonder about like defense lawyers like that. I'm just like, how can you do that?
I know.
How can you go to bed? It's
got to be really conflicting unless you have like kind of sociopathic
unless you really believe it.
You don't care.
Yeah.
But Jaycee's private journal revealed years of Jaycee's thoughts on being a captive. So like basically they had firsthand handwritten evidence of her saying, I wish somebody could help me or save me. And so it's like, at least they had actual physical evidence saying like, no. Like you can call her a happy family, whatever. But like, here's literal proof that she was saying, I wish somebody would find me. Her mother read the impact statement that Jaycee wrote for the Garrido sentencing. And it began, I chose not to be here today because I refuse to waste another second of my life in your presence.
That
is, perfection.
Delicious.
Her mom's like, I'll step in here. God, I love it. It closed, quote, yes, as I think of all of those years, I am angry because you stole my life and that of my family. Thankfully, I am doing well now and no longer live in a nightmare. I have wonderful friends and family around me, something you can never take from me again. You do not matter anymore. Reunited with her family, Jaycee wrote 2 best-selling books in which she chronicled her life in captivity and her life after she, got her freedom back. And she founded a foundation called so her name is spelled Jaycee. Her foundation is called Jaycee, but it's Jay and then the letter C. All capital letters, and it stands for Just Ask Yourself to Care.
Oh.
And it's her foundation. Their mission is to be of service to families and individuals that have experienced a severe crisis, challenge, or conflict through a major life disruption, to spread the message of hope, growth, and resiliency through educational and animal-assisted programs, to encourage the collaboration of various entities to provide protected spaces for families to heal. And so through her work, countless others will have the opportunity to heal, following Jaycee's example and strength and her family's love and unending hope. And that is the story of Jaycee Lee Dugard, who is now in her 40s, has a family with her kids, happy.
Wow.
Being interviewed, and it's just like, yeah, that was fucked up.
Oof.
And I'm like, girl, I watched the documentary and I barely survived. I don't know how people have such strong... Women are so strong. That's all. Women are so fucking strong.
That's true.
The end.
It's a good moral.
Sweet girl. It's just so sad. 18 years of your life.
Yeah. I can't imagine. That was, I hope they still look at the moon together.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
When I was little and my stepdad left, which I thought was just like temporary, and then it ended up being for good. It sounds like some sort of like weird after school special, but anyway.
We've been there. I've been there too.
We've all
It's
been
okay.
there. You guys get it.
Mine left me at the airport, so I get it.
Yikes. Yeah. And I remember him telling me, oh, if you ever look at the moon, we'll be looking at the same moon. And I still think about it to this day.
Oh, that certainly was a traumatic moment. Yeah.
Yeah, but then that person started, I'm not going to name names, but then that person had 2 kids of their own and stopped speaking to me. So it's fine. It's not like I have nightmares about it every day.
Mine had 2 kids before me and now doesn't talk to any of us. So
that would be better, because then at least I have someone to like commiserate with, you know?
Yeah.
I just like watch the family photos and I'm like, well, that was me for a minute.
Isn't that weird? When I was going through my mom's,
you know what's the most painful?
What?
Sorry.
No.
Whenever that person posts about like things like this, like the moon or like a book we used to read together, and I'm like, that was our thing.
Yeah, but he has to know that, right? You would think he knows that like it's affecting you.
I hope.
I don't know. That's rough.
Wow.
My ex-dad, I still think about him. It's weird. I might see him soon in court.
Do you want me to write you here? Why don't we just copy Jaycee's mom's statement? I don't want to spend another fucking second of my life with you.
I'm curious about how that's gonna go, but I don't know. I wonder if he'll think about me.
Leave it to M.
Bars.
I'm like,
I don't know.
Sometimes I think of my stepdad and how we looked at the moon. And I was like, well, I'm going to see my stepdad in court. M is the one-up king.
I'm not trying to one-up. I just
I know you're not.
I'm trying to think of like what's the one thing that him and I like. I can't think of a thing that he thinks about me. I mean, maybe he does.
But you know what's so painful is that like I always wonder if he thinks about me.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm like, but he has 2 kids, so it's and like they're so close and happy, and which I'm obviously so happy for them. But it's like I just wonder, like he probably doesn't even. It doesn't even cross his mind. I don't know.
I think he thinks of me if there's ever like a Back to the Future reference, because
like a very specific you thing.
Yeah, but I don't
like how could you not think of him in this moment?
Because after he left like a DeLorean toy for me as like I'm sorry gift. So he must. He thought of me then.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't
still have it.
I think I do, and I never took it out of the box, which probably says something.
I don't know what it says though.
Me either. Like I don't want anything to do with it, or
you're keeping it like.
No, it's not like because it's a collector's thing. It's like I
just want to even touch it.
Yeah, I was just like, this is kind of gross. Like, thanks for the gift for
God.
Leaving. Like,
Meanwhile, I keep my gifts and from the person I'm speaking about, and like have them like preserved specially in a box.
I mean, there's also, it must say something that I haven't thrown it away.
I know, right? It's like, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if he thinks about me. But also part of me thinks he's too selfish to ever do that.
You know what makes me sad too is like Jaycee's stepdad was already so cruel to her in the beginning. Remember? Like,
yeah.
When and her own dad, who said he wanted nothing to do with her, and her mom had to tell her like, "Hey, your dad just." I mean, this talk about like generational trauma. Like this just keeps happening.
I mean,
like,
man after man after man. Like you just like it just gets worse.
Yes, and now Jaycee's daughters have to live with, oh, my dad is a rapist, you know, and then like, how do they get? I mean, it's just like, and I spent my first 16 years of my life under the
held hostage, and I didn't even know it. Yeah. Yeah. People think that us talking about our stepdads like is kind of like uncomfy, but imagine like what Jaycee has to do every time she makes a friend, you know? So
we could probably talk more about our stepdads if you wanted to do that in the Yappy Hour, or we could do something else. I don't know. We have a lot to talk about in the Yappy Hour, guys. It's raining here. I'm feeling moody as shit.
If you'd like to know more of our ex-dad trauma, then hop on over to Yappy Hour.
If you have ex-dad trauma, let's all go commiserate together.
Yeah.
You can find us at patreon.com/ATWWD podcast. We do a weekly Yappy Hour, which we thought people didn't like, but it turns out they were just listening through the RSS feed and not the video link, which that was my bad. So apparently people do listen to it, which is shocking because I feel like I said a lot of things that I just assumed was just you and me FaceTiming. But it feels like if anything will ever leak about us, I think it will be through Yappy Hour, because I really lose my filter there, because I know nobody in my own circle listens because they don't pay me money on Patreon. So I'm like, who would find out, you know?
Well, and for a one night only, if you'd like to hear more about our stepfather drama, to talk about things that are going to leak, head on over. Catch you there.
It's so fun, guys. That's
why
wait.
drink.